This part of the interview starts with a little summary because we had an error on the tape, so we have been missing some minutes. But we were talking about responsibility and ethical matters concerning the industry and the government, and what people should do and not should do, and who they should point their fingers at. And so, sorry about the bad sound quality the next minute. We'll try to do our best, and please sharpen your ears and listen to your intuition. Then you will know all what was missing, and perhaps what was missing was meant to be. Thank you very much for listening, and please pay it forward to most people. Thank you.
And said, we have a project, we want to sell it, we want to build this system, is it all right or not? And the governments and so on have said, yeah, this is all right. So I see very often in the public debate, people are knocking on the doors of the private industry, but that's the wrong door. Yeah. They should knock on the doors of their elected politicians, the government, the parliament, and so on, And I don't think they knock very often there, actually.
Yeah. But then we come back to the ethical, because it has to be, we have to get a higher ethical standard in every way, and then you can say that perhaps the industry also has a responsibility, because perhaps they didn't tell all the story, because you have been there since the 1970s, and we know about the engineers from Ericsson in Sweden. They became sick just by manufacturing the 3G system. So someone knows a little bit.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there has been, as you know, in the European Union, a very far-reaching discussion in the Commission there about the producer responsibility, which is coming, particularly in the chemistry industry, but naturally also here. And as producers, they are responsible in a sense, yes, of course. But still, again, I would go back and initiate this discussion at the governmental level, because if a government in a certain country would say that, given all this evidence, we have to say no thank you, that would of course be a signal to the entire world that, oh gee, look, they took another step here, and believe me, that particular country saying no would not vanish. They would not have a plague or whatever. I mean, they would still continue. They would have the need for eating, breathing, reading, communicating, and so on, but in another fashion. It wouldn't change anything, really, But you couldn't stress them by using their mobile phones, because that would be gone in that sense, But maybe we'll never see that, of course.
What about when we're talking about the European Union? You told us when you asked the infinite question, they never will be able to. Okay, but the reflex study from 2003, which was first published in 2005, Professor Franz Adler-Kofer, which showed double-strand DNA strand breaks, and it shows so many things, but it has not been mentioned at all in Denmark or Sweden. Just a little notice.
That's also very odd, because it goes back to studies done in United States and in other countries already in the 1990s, where, for instance, Professor Henry Lai and his collaborators, Narendra Singh, they were able to show that if you irradiated DNA with microwaves using the Bluetooth standard 2.45 gigahertz, you would get an increase in DNA double and single strand breakages. That's true, And then the industry decided that they would prove this wrong, because they had serious doubts, and there were also various scientists that also had put out serious doubts about the results, although they were replicated in various cell types and in various laboratories, but there was still doubt, And therefore, an enormous amount of money was put into, I think it was 12 laboratories in 7 European countries, that each independent of each other should replicate these studies, and they did. And when this double blinding, or what you should call, was broken, it turned out that these laboratories had actually proven, Henry Lai and his collaborators, that they were correct. DNA will break if you irradiate it with microwaves. And the story then goes that representatives of politics and industry tried to stop the publication for a number of years, actually, and they failed, and eventually it was published. But as you say, like in Sweden, I don't think I've seen any article whatsoever about it, apart from a few debate articles written by myself. I mean, and there were some article in a small magazine called Miljö Magazine, the environmental magazine, but that was it. And it's very odd because we are talking about DNA breakages after also controlled experiments at an exposure level that is allowed. We should be able to take it, Mm-hmm. And you see these DNA breakages, and they are serious. Such breakages could form the basis for development of cancer tumors. They could explain the whole issue of infertility, sperm cell line reductions, and so on. And Alzheimer, Parkinson's. They could explain a lot of things just on this single observation, and now being repeated in so many countries, in so many laboratories, in so well-controlled experiments, And just that single piece of knowledge must make governments and parliaments hesitate enormously in front of this obstacle, If I was the Prime Minister, I would say, no way, we just cannot allow people, animals, and plants and bushes to be exposed to this, No way. I cannot take it on my responsibility,
And we are only talking 2G. 2G. We are not talking 3G or Wi-Fi systems.
We are talking one single piece of knowledge. If you go, for instance, to the Bioinitiative report, out of the more than 2,000 papers, maybe 10 or 20 of them were dealing with this piece of knowledge. And then you could add. And I don't understand, really, mankind, their wish to destroy themselves, in a sense, And no, it's odd.
When we talk about DNA, in Danish, I call it den nye arv, the new heritage.
Yeah.
And then I say children is the new arv, the new heritage.
Yeah.
But the funny thing, I think, funny, not funny really, but in the reflex study, and with the Henry Lai and other things, is every time something about DNA comes forth, Motorola closes it down. It's like Motorola is intelligence everywhere, but then intelligence means something else. Because they shut down research programs, they remove funding. And
I remember Henry Lai, he told me, because we were part, I think it was 1996, in a BBC documentary. We didn't know each other really at that time, but we have met since then. But he told me afterwards that when he had appeared on that television program talking about these DNA damages, his funding was immediately stopped. And his position was questioned. Letters were written to the dean and the president of his university and so on. There was an enormous activity trying to push him off his premises, and people failed. But of course, since then they have lived in a very reduced environment, I would say, as have we